Being armed with an array of water bottles to soothe my sore throat and likely some sort of undiagnosed mental condition underlying, I'm back. Probably dismayed a few people, but hey, I'm back. This time, I actually took some advice from that guy in the comments. Shout out to that guy in the comments. And wrote down a little checklist to myself of points and topics that I may be discussing. I'm gonna take another sip of water very quickly. Another, this is the first sip, whatever. Not first sip of the bottle, there we go, I'm technically correct still. I'm gonna be discussing villains. And I've got this little checklist, like I mentioned, but because it's my first time really using something like that, even my D&D sessions are kind of unplanned. Well, I have plans, it's just like how closely I follow it and how much is planned as a whole. You know, it's a whole thing. But, what was I saying? We'll see how this goes. The checklist is really there as just like the points I keep looking at. I'm gonna bounce between them still, regardless. But I mean, hey, you knew that. Same point that's out there now before I forget. Get up, stretch, let the blood flow through all the parts of your body that need to flow. Shit like that. Stay healthy, watch your posture, some bullshit of that nature. You get how it goes. But like I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, and I guess it myself, we're going to be discussing villains of a story. Or, I guess antagonists, but most antagonists are like the bad guys, so let's just broadly say villains. And yes, I'm aware not antagonist does not mean bad guy. It just means opposite to the protagonist. But most stories are like that, and you know that, so we're gonna be discussing we're gonna be talking about the penis. No, we're gonna be discussing villains. So I don't care how much slice of life anime you watch, manga you read, or hell, even fanfic you read. Every good story needs a good plot. Every good plot has a good antagonist. What does that mean? Good. Well, for one, it's memorable. Everyone loves a good memorable villain. That's why everyone knows what Nazis looked like, and as opposed to some other group that I can't even mention because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about right now. Memorability is a big part of villains. They're one of two things that stick out to you in stories, even if they don't do much. I'm gonna once again say some bullshit on a piece of media I still have not interacted with, because for as imposing and intimidating as he is and looks, I think Sauron like really didn't do much on screen. I'm sure he did stuff, just I don't know how much of it was on screen, considering if I look him up, I don't find that many rigs of him or that many models of him or that many scenes that have him as the forefront, comparably. But he's still memorable because of his imposing design and shit like that. So what does make a villain memorable? Well, for one, their actions. Actions speak louder than words is parable, I guess, is that the word? Parable, I guess? For a reason. The axe forgets, the tree remembers, shit like that. If you, despite just mentioning, I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying Sauron doesn't do much on screen. Having a villain that actively does things is pretty memorable and noticeable, right? You'll remember if a villain like has an imposing scene in a film or movie, because it'll get clipped and put on YouTube everywhere. So consider the following. What's his first name? Strahd from Curse of Strahd campaign, Dungeons and Dragons 5e. Maybe he was in the older editions too, I don't know. Strahd's the main antagonist, and he constantly shows up to mock the party. I've read the whatever the fuck you call it module. I don't really run modules outside of maybe one self-contained fight or dungeon. Strahd, real name. Because it's not Strahd von Zodovich from fucking Barovia. So I don't really run modules personally, but I've read through them for like ideas and shit like that because they're a great wellspring. Because they are literally an entire D&D plot that is also designed to be flexible for your party, but not super. Curse of Strahd is not this amazing bastion everyone says it is. Go reread it. It's not all that. Strahd shows up a few times during the campaign to act as this imposing figure that mocks the party as they progress, up until the point where you go and defeat Strahd. Also, people are really horny for him, even though, first tangent, vampires should be disgusting, hideous, grotesque freaks, and I'm tired of pretending they should be this seductive, fucking perfect alabaster skin, sons of bitches, right? They should look more like Nosferatu, a horrible wretch of a man. I've had this conversation a few times with a friend of mine and my family because my neck, Jesus. Not because I'm not a oops, I'm not bitten by a vampire. No siree, no need to check. Anyway, ugh, my throat. Uh, fucking stomach acid and bile. I've had this conversation a few times with my family, right? That I fully, genuinely believe that vampires should be gross, fucking disgusting creatures that do not look attractive in the slightest. Because what are they, right? They're dead people, like outright. They're just dead outright, reanimated by some vile necrotics, magic, and shit, things like that, right? Walking around, dead of night, cannot go into the sun, subsisting entirely on a liquid diet of blood, with probably living in their ancient crypts and castles for who knows how many centuries. That should not look good, on top of losing hair, your body still rots, right? Your fingernails grow obscenely long and fragile. I should know whenever I get stressed, they kind of grow a little bit faster and they fell out of the nail beds. Not fully, it's just like the nail beds start peeling. It's a weird stress response my body does. I don't fucking get it. Um, and a few other things like related to vampires. Because whatever causes the vampiric condition should not be able to fucking hinder aging. Especially considering vampires usually have some sort of healing factor, showing that their bodies are still active in order to heal themselves. Also, why they still need to fucking eat, shit like that. That'll take its toll on a person. Rot happens to all biological matter. At the very least, they should be disease-ridden, pustule-laden abominations, completely grotesque form of a human image. Of course, my progenitors, my family, they don't agree. That's just because they were raised on like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Maybe they're just vampires in disguise, for all I know. But for one, vampires should be fucking ugly. They should not be sexy or handsome. Despite that kind of maybe for you going against memorability. But to me, a disgusting creature is more memorable than one that's kind of attractive, right? Because your brain's like, oh, that's someone pretty, and then you notice it after like a few weeks. If I see a corpse on the street, I'm gonna be thinking about that until I die. Sorry, I just thought about some of the dead animals I see on the road. Uh, but, you know, I got off topic. Memorable antagonist is one that shows themselves to be actually capable, right? A capable antagonist is someone who actively. Okay, so there's this idea of being reactive and proactive. Um, you've probably heard of this as a complaint for people's characters. Um, if it's a complaint for a protagonist, it's a complaint for an antagonist. I'll tell you that much right now. There's absolutely a character that's too reactive and absolutely a character that's too proactive. Well, actually, there's no character that's too proactive, I don't think. Obviously, there's still gonna be, like, exceptions, but generally speaking, You know what I'm on about. Yeah. Look, need a new bottle of water. Just like that. There we are. Ugh. Anyway, what was I saying? I got distracted by my own stomach acid. That's a typical everyday human experience, I'm sure. I'm definitely not weird because I have this weird fucking eating disorder. Memorability. So I was talking about being reactive. Okay, so if a character is too reactive, it makes it feel like they have no say in the story at all, which is awful when it's a main character because an antagonist is absolutely a main character in the same way a protagonist is. You don't like it when your protagonist only rolls with the punches and never puts their foot down on anything because it makes them feel like they're just along for the ride, and that's not a fun thing to read compared to like a protagonist who's thinking issues through and trying to plan around their opponent. It becomes this fun like sort of cat and mouse game or something like that. You get what I'm trying to say here, yeah? Um, so having your antagonist actually, uh, it's a lot easier for the antagonist because they're like, the plot as you could see it. Having your antagonist actually work around the ideas of, not the ideas, the actions of your heroes is a lot easier, especially for a D&D campaign where you want to literally do that. Uh, like, how do you say? Does, if you have a plan in your D&D campaign, because again, I fucking love uh, playing D&D, cut to last video where I made it because of the exact reason that I was upset that my fucking players did not show up, even though I schedule the sessions on the exact same day every week, and I give them full fucking time to call ahead. Not the not the point here. Well, yes, the point, but not the main point here. As your characters do more things, your villains should absolutely take that into account. Any plan you had for them ahead of time can absolutely and probably should be adapted in order to fit what they will do as like a fun new challenge. Obviously, don't fucking trounce them because that's not fun in either side. I don't think players as a player, I don't have fun when I trounce an encounter either. Right? I like struggling a bit, and if that means that, real story, my party's druid is out of the combat for over half of the combat. My party's sorcerer was up and down 5 separate times. My bard was up and down 8 separate times, and we had practically no healing left. And then flubbed the end of the fight by letting the big bad take this awful like artifact. Then so be it. Can't wait for that campaign to end. Like, oh, I can't wait for this to end. Like, oh man, that the ending's gonna be so good. I hope. I trust my DM. Don't worry. Same way I hope my players trust me, but since they don't fucking show up, oh god, who knows? I'm not fucking mad. What, who, me? Mad? No, never. I'm gonna get up to get another bottle because I'm worried that my 7 won't make it. Fuck was I saying again? Hmm, whatever. Probably had a good point that I was making that I ignored. No, I was just being a bitter asshole, that's what it was. No better feeling in the world. That's what is what your villains should feel like. Another thing that makes your villains memorable: a personal connection to your heroes of your story. Now, I don't mean that they have to be like related or anything, but if your main villain goes out of their way to slight your protagonists, that is a hallmark of a memorable villain because they're actively going ahead and doing some shit, you know? Um, that's another fucking thing to mention. Okay, so I'll just mention this right now, and I'll keep mentioning it throughout. Uh, if you want your villains to be treated as such by whatever your players or your readers or your watchers or whatever the fuck you're doing, And heed this advice, young ones seeking the knowledge of the Dark Elders. Don't make them hot, or if you're gonna make them hot, don't make them too hot. Because I mentioned before, I don't think ontologically evil races and stuff like that is actually that much of an issue. And I saw a fucking meme on World Jerking that emphasized exactly what I was feeling perfectly. Ontologically evil races, nobody gives a shit when they're ugly. Think of the Skaven from Warhammer Fantasy, because Warhammer Fantasy and also Necromunda are the cooler versions of Warhammer, because they actually give a fuck about their lore and give a bunch of cool little stories on it. Just like Galaxy ending on the regular, and that's not it. I don't understand real stakes of that. Anyway, people fucking love Skaven, both on the sides of haha, I'm a rat and going to kill, because that's a fun rat thing to do, but also because like that's funny. That's like a cool villain to have, is like these fucking morons who are more likely to blow each other up than you. And obviously, like rats, Skaven aren't just that, but that's a pretty big part of the Skaven, isn't it? Right? Don't we all love those stupid? Think about it this way: there are so many. Fuck, are they called? Kit bashes for gene stealers that are the cheese stealer cults for Skaven. An entire two, sure, it's the same universe, but it's an entirely different fucking setting because people like the Skaven so much. The Skaven are not complex at all. They are literally just every single one of them. There is not a single exception. Every single one of them are backstabbing, traitorous, pox-ridden fuckheads who would love nothing more than to kill and eat you, because that means you can't kill and eat them, and in their brain that's what you're gonna do. And that's how their whole fucking society works. And people fucking love the Skaven, right? People fucking love the Skaven. But if the Skaven were hot, people would hate them. Or rather, they would give reasons to justify, oh, the Skaven are right. And I'm using the Skaven as an example because nobody will look. Okay, so I'm a monster fucker, as everyone is deep down on the inside. You just gotta look inside and reveal the truth to yourself. Skaven are not hot, dude. Stop drawing them hot. Okay, so the monster fuckers who like make art of the Skaven as like hot, you are not doing the Skaven justice. You will draw the Skaven properly, which are not hot, which is why it's like everyone's fine to hate on them and shit like that. I lost the plot immediately. So again, like ontologically evil shit, right? For a story, clarify, for a story, is fine. You don't need to give your villain some big justification, which I'll get onto in a second. Right there, see right there that you can't see. I'm gonna copy and paste this little checklist right there into the description if I remember. So you don't gotta worry. It'll be up there if I remember, because a lot of what I do is very reliant on the shit that my brain tells me, which on the best of days is muddled with static. What am I getting at? Um, so check the description, and I'll probably have it down there so you can get a feel for the bullshit I'm gonna be spouting at you, which I'll keep referencing. Anyway, um, ontologically evil races are fine, right? You don't need to have everything be complex. And if you don't want your readers or watchers or fucking whoever consuming your product to be like, yes, the villain did nothing wrong on a genuine level, then don't make them too hot. And that's not even a joke. Like, there is no irony when I say that. If you don't want your readers to take every word the villain says as absolute truth and be diehard fans and supporters of them, make them ugly. Which goes beyond, I can't believe I actually can't get to extend this point, which goes beyond just how they look physically. if you make it clear that their empire or whatever sort of like power they hold is like flawed, that goes a long way. Sadly, media literacy is dead. While it would make a bunch of sense for this flawed system to have like a shiny veneer of paint that represents how like actual ideologies like X ideology are just like fucking what am I trying to say? If you cover up the fact that they are like a complete failure destined to crash and burn with a shiny coat of paint, your readers won't um, probably won't even be able to fucking recognize that and just go, of course, I should have known. The villains in the end were actually fully correct, and the heroes were stupid for not recognizing that and immediately allying themselves with it. If if you don't want that to happen, make them fucking ugly in some manner. It is so funny how once they're not attractive, people will actually engage with the media on its own terms. So, and again, that extends to like, don't make their uh like major base this decadent, beautiful, like high class society mansion. Have it be like a rundown shack full of like corroded metal and putrescent slime. Because people, no sane person would look at that and go, of course, a villain that I can trust. Anyway, so I mentioned that your villains don't need any sort of fucking genuine motive. Like, how do I say? What did I look? What did, which? Okay, which one of these is it? Okay, it's above. Don't make them too hot. So it's fine to give your villain sensible motivations, and in fact, I absolutely encourage it to give them sensible motivations. But maybe don't justify them. No, I immediately didn't go to the topic I wanted to. I'm going to continue with this topic, but what I wanted was the one that says don't need them to be too complex. So, I, if you see it everywhere in writing circles, it's like the let your villains just be fucking evil dickheads again. Because every villain now needs, of again, I'm painting in broad terms and I refuse to spend money on shit. And God, I hate, like, actually showing affection for media outside of the affection for media I've shown in these past videos. What, okay, whatever. Um, damage control, insert general damage control statement here. End statement. So, I'm really sick of a lot of the mainstay villains now being fully sympathetic, did nothing wrong, ooh, soft-hearted good boys and girls, and uh, another term for those that don't identify. Because that's kind of really, really fucking lame. You spent this entire story making them out to be an awful person, the clear-cut bad guy, in order to pull the rug out from under you, to shoehorn in a plot of, not a plot, or like this idea of, like, oh, we make our own villains, or oh, they truly had the best interest at heart, but all, what's the saying? Roads go to hell, path to hell is paved with good intentions, whatever. Especially because it starts to feel like the narrative itself is now bending over backwards to justify whatever extreme actions the villains potentially have taken in your story so far. And I am not a big fan of that at all. No, I am not. I flicked something away in my room. You couldn't see it. Because I do these at night when I'm feeling stupid mode, I'm blanking on every single fucking piece of media I've ever consumed, and I can't bring up any fucking, like, points right now with by calling on attention to specific media. It also doesn't help that the only media I really consume is stuff I've talked about, i.e., fantasy, horror, SCPs, shit like that. And I refuse to spend money on things. So you'll have to just fill in the gaps yourself, but I'm sure you can pull one out somewhere, right? Because fucking every story deserves a good villain, and people, from what I've seen, are generally starting to be on the side of like, oh, kind of want the villains to be intimidating, imposing, actually evil once more, but again, I need to stop making generalizations and actually start talking about shit as if anything I say is sensible at all. Takes another sip of water. I'll probably go back to that point when I got my feet under myself. Like mentally speaking, that is, like actually know what I'm going to talk about. So, your villains don't really need complex motivations for what they do. Power itself can just be a motivation. It's fine to go back to the idea of they want power, so they subjugate. It's fine. Nobody's gonna hold you at gunpoint and demand you change it because shit, it is an actual thing people do. Like they take extreme measures to gain power or money or influence or just the MacGuffin for nebulous but certainly nefarious reasons. But like the point under it, they don't need to be dull either. If you'd like to give your main villain these complex, super high fidelity, um, is that the word? These complex, super in-depth, intricate reasons behind their actions, you can absolutely go ahead and do that. What? And you may be thinking I'm stupid for putting these both right there and saying these both. What I'm actually trying to stand here before thee and tell upon you is you shouldn't feel restricted into um you shouldn't feel restricted into doing one or the other. Your ideas can absolutely work with uh man, you shouldn't feel restricted into needing to have your villain be this complex, like multifaceted character, and you shouldn't feel pressured into having your villain be a one note uh like block of HP that your players or heroes will just beat on and then the day is saved. Right? There's room for a mixture, there's room for neither, there's room for a bunch of different shit, but just make it clear that they're a villain in some way. If that require like in whatever way that may manifest itself. I'm just gonna pick another one, motifs, because I'm actually just reading through these apparently. So this goes back to the make them memorable um point. Villains with motifs, they'll stick in your head. If a villain has this whole like theme going on of roses and their thorns, which kind of does play into the whole like, oh, it makes sense, seduction, your villain's attractive, whatever, right? Don't fucking take anything I say as hard set words of that you need to follow to the letter, because I'm fucking retarded. I'll be real with you. You know that guy, what the fuck's his name, Fujimoto-san on Twitter or something like that? He has that cap that says retarded on it. He's one of the funniest fuckers around. Oh man, there's this great picture of it's got a hat of himself with a hat that says retarded on it, and it's one of the funniest images I've ever seen. Anyway, so I'm a fucking idiot, right? You don't need to follow anything I say to the letter or anything I say at all. If you just throw this up and put it on the background as background noise, that's fine. I mean, that's what I recommend anyway. But back to the point I'm actually here to make. Kinda. Motifs. They're a powerful tool to like put in your story, narratively speaking, to emphasize the control the villains have without needing to be present at all. I mentioned before how your villains should be present, but here's a way to have them be present without giving your heroes an opportunity to quick draw and headshot the fucker. Because I know that's a big issue for a bunch of people, especially in something like D&D. Like I mentioned, with the villain having a motif of roses, maybe they have the colors of a rose, and like a white rose in particular, with the red like collar and like chest the shirt has like the chest area red, slowly sleeping down to the white, and then they have like I don't know studded armbands and belts and shit to represent the thorns or something, or they've named a rapier the thorn or something like that's their signature weapon. Having a character see a rose and be reminded of them, if even for a moment, is a small thing that A gives your story the impression of depth and how maybe in depth itself, and B makes it known that the villains are an actual force that your heroes will be thinking about. They have presence. If they have notoriety and influence, you could have it be a plot point that someone wearing a rose as a corsage or whatever the fuck the word is for the little flower you pin to your shirt when you go to formal events could be like an underground form of like support for the villain, whether or not the support is earned fully or not, or like in earnest is one thing or the other. It could be an intimidation tactic. It could be a whole thing of like if they, I don't know, like attack a train or something, or hold a train hostage or a bank hostage. All the survivors or like hostages they release are given a garland of roses to signify it's like their calling card, or like they scatter rose petals wherever they go. And at the end, you could have it be revealed that there's like covered with some sort of nasty affliction, and the whole rose thing was a cover up for the scent and unsightly appearance. Right? That wherever they go is like they keep the roses around them to act as a natural perfume. They use the flashy colors and their confident poses to detract the eyes from the pox upon their neck, the ring of lesions around their wrists, shit like that. You can do interesting things and give interesting reasons for those motifs in turn. And it's fun for stories. It lets them kind of breathe. It gives them a little whatever. What do they call? It's like an inhaler to a coughing asthmatic kid. I'm sure that made sense. Anyway, let me crack my neck. Oh, hot damn. Other side, fuck yeah. Shoulder. Just giving myself some time to think while still feeling the air. God damn. I'm still feeling the air. My back cracked. Something fierce. Anyway, motifs are a fun thing. It could also go with your story's theming, but I think I've said all I can on that topic, so we're gonna move on just a bit. Um, oh, good. Body's fighting back again. That's always fun. Let's do this one. What they represent, if anything. Now, what can your villains represent? Well, your villains can be, though they need not be, diametrically opposed to your hero. Something something Batman and the Joker, perfect chaos versus perfect control, or whatever the fuck people say about that. You know. Um, I think it's more interesting of Batman and Scarecrow. I'll explain why I take a sip of water. Batman uses fear to corral Gotham's like villains and criminals. That's a major point of his. Scarecrow's whole thing is like living your life with fear or something along those lines. I don't know. Again, I'm not super into what is it called superhero stories. So, Scarecrow, fucking Batman, so at the core of it, well, at a core, at one of the shells of the core of it, they tackle the issues that they believe are rampant in the city in much of the same way, using fear tactics. The ways they go about it and the rules they give themselves are vastly different. That much is apparent even for me. Which is the fun. You get these two characters who act and think in kind of similar ways, but go about it and do varying different things, like with the result of it. What does that sentence even mean? Or you could have that stupid analogy I've grown fond of hating, mostly because I hate Joker fanboys that you see everywhere in YouTube comments and Instagram comments, and I don't have Instagram, so I don't even know why I said that. Of the fucking perfect chaos versus like absolute chaos versus absolute law and shit like that. I'll get into something like that at some point, maybe, but probably not tonight. Um, they're at complete odds, right, or something. I'm gonna get off this like analogy because I don't know it. Your villain and your hero can be at complete odds with one another. One can seek dominion and control, whereas the other can be a freedom fighter, and that's fun. Gives you free villainous deeds of slavery. Nobody will support slavery. Unless it's a fetish thing, but make it explicitly clear that this is not, because once again, don't make your villains hot. Otherwise you get people going like, oh, blank character did nothing wrong, and it's not rage bait. I'm gonna go get up and use the bathroom and I'll come back and hopefully I remember what I'm talking about. Pause. Predictably, I forgot what the fuck I was talking about. Um, which one of these was I on? Representing something, I think? Or fuck, what points did I make? Damn it. Whatever. Having your characters be at complete odds with one another is still good for your story. Even if I do like the idea of we're similar, aren't we? But like, it's also funny if you bring up, okay, so funny and like sensible and stuff like that, it's a whole issue. Like, oh, putting something in your world because it's funny and then realizing, oh shit, I have to world build around this. You're putting something in my world because it's funny and then realizing, oh shit, that's cool and I can world build around this. Whatever. So it's funny to do the we're the same, you and I, trope, and then have your characters, well, your hero usually, or maybe your villain too sometimes, in universe go, what the fuck? No, we're not, like at all. It's always really funny and I've wanted to do that for the longest time, but also it's kind of lame. Says me, cringe lord. Maybe cringe, but I am free. Fuck as I said? Anyway. Having your characters be at complete odds with one another is still great for your story. Right, because it's the typical man versus man clash, right? Also, your just really quickly, your villains don't need to be humans. I remember, uh, what is when I was, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I remember when I was writing these down, I looked at, you don't need them to be complex, and in my head was thinking, big evil monster, right? That's like in my head, I was like, oh, if you don't want a complex villain, you can just do a big fucking monster, because obviously people will be like, oh my god, that's a big fucking monster. I don't like that. I'm gonna fight it. Because it's an easy shortcut to giving your heroes a free excuse to be right. That's kind of fallen out of fashion, I've noticed. And not a bad thing, right? Because if every story was big evil monster, it'd be kind of not interesting, in a word. At least I think that's the word. But if every single story was like that, it wouldn't be fun. But having your villain be big evil monster can be very fun. And because there's always the still man versus nature. When I say these, I'm just kind of assuming you guys know what I'm on about. Um, where it's like those, I'm sure you see that in some sort of like high school writing class, the man versus self, man versus God, man versus man, shit like that. Ugh, back of my throat tastes acrid. I wonder if tonight's the night where I have to end one of these early. But so far I can still speak. Anyway, so having a monster isn't bad in your story, as like basic or juvenile as it may seem to people. Ugh, hit my bottle. I threw my phone. New bottle. Because another thing you'll most people can forget at times is your villain being a monster. It can still represent things, right? But this goes into more of the metaphorical aspect of having villains. Maybe I'll touch on that later. I'm not the best at metaphors and similes. Most of all of this is incoherent nonsense. And one of my favorite ways to tell stories is anecdotal, um, stream of consciousness kind of stuff. So, not to say I don't like it when the main villain is a metaphor for something in real life. The easiest one that comes to mind is like cancer or something. Ugh, choking down more fucking bile. Or all of what is it called? All of cyberpunk is and can be no, I think if it wasn't intentionally, it can absolutely be made into an allegory for disability, right? Needing to pay exorbitant fees and change your whole lifestyle as the result of some sort of accident. The cost of living goes up if you are disabled and suddenly need a elevator or elevator access, right? Limits your apartment choices and things like that. Limits your job opportunities, a bunch of, things. The point I'm trying, whatever. I'm not disabled, so I can't really speak on this too much. But all of cyberpunk can absolutely be one big allegory for disability, right? Um, Also, I would hate to be in cyberpunk because I don't want to replace my shit with robot parts. No offense, Admech, you're my favorite human faction, but, you know, flesh superior to steel. I flexed, you couldn't see it. Hell, even I can see it. Again, I'm not very athletic at all. I stay inside all day. But also is it cyberpunk or is it? You see this sometimes in stories, it's like the loss of limbs and replacing them with like bionics or metal to represent the loss of humanity, which has a really uncomfortable ableism vibe going on, implying that disabled people are less human, or someone whose body doesn't work the way they want it to is not human, shit like that. So always be cognizant of how bad it may look, but also if you do the metaphor poorly, and it can be taken that way, that's on you. It's your fault. You fucked up. No one else is gonna uh, really be there to take the fall for you because you were the writer in this case. I think maybe. Yeah, anyway, it's my knuckles. Anyway, what was I saying? Just talking about cyberpunk. So, your villains, and in cyberpunk, the villains is usually a corporation, so what I said actually holds merit. Being a metaphor is very nice in terms of narrative and just in terms of an interesting villain in general. The issue is pulling it off, and it's a real issue. It can be very tricky because although your villain need not be complex, writing them assuredly is. because, again, the plot revolves around them in a sense, because they're at the center of the maelstrom, or at least they should be. Your villain shouldn't just be someone from the shadows without it being alluded to. Your villain can be a cabal of people working from the shadows, but it needs to be alluded to. Uh, how do I fucking put it, right? I don't know. It's a bait and switch. I'll get into the debate and switch later, but it's a bait and switch where you think the story is going one way, and then all of a sudden, villain who was never mentioned before suddenly pulls up little little fucking like with little foresight, not foreshadowing, and kind of just crashes in without the reader really getting time to get a feel for whoever the fuck this suddenly is, right? Out of nowhere, bam, new fucking villain that suddenly the heroes must take down. And it feels super unearned and super anticlimactic and just not very, how do you say, interesting, right? So that's a pretty big point I guess I can put down right here. The most important thing for your villains is make it clear the whole way through who the villain is. Now, this will probably go against, nope, this goes against what I said earlier of having your villains be memorable. Well, no, because it doesn't actually. Because it can still be a memorable villain when the story's said and done. Ugh. It can go against the motifs as no, because so actually there's nothing wrong with anything I just said and I'm a genius. Is what I'm realizing. Let me take another sip. Nice. As nice as this can get, it's not the coldest water and it's not the nightest night. You know what I'm saying? Like a cold water out of in the middle in the early morning feels great. Uh, I'm sure everyone like fucking. You all wake up from nightmares, see a glass of water in your bed, and go like, not on your bed, glass of water, and you kind of be like, fuck yeah, water. Speaking of, probably crack a new bottle open soon. But actually, does this one have stum? Oh, I've lost it in my bed, actually. Isn't that funny? Anyway, uh, what was I saying? Some about, fuck me. I think I said earlier about some probably undiagnosed issues. Fuck it. What the fuck was I talking about? Oh, I'm mad. Whatever. How to make a villain. So, your villain shouldn't just be. Hmm. Okay, well, again, your villain can be fucking simple as hell and no one gives a shit. Or at least no one should, probably. Uh, your villain shouldn't just be some unrelated fucking lunatic in the woods rambling about killing everyone when the whole conflict so far has been about solving some sort of like strike issue on a nearby mine. You see what I'm saying? Your villain should be satisfying, and that starts at creation of your villain. Your villain should be a feasible, not necessarily rational, but feasible uh, response to something within your world. In hmm, okay, so there's this cool thing, cool tabletop war game coming out. 1490 Doom. In this world, is something called the Creeping Death, and it's this cloud of like poison that seeps out of the ground itself and will subsume all of reality, all of the world. It's a war game that's like has a hard set when the world ends. It's kind of cool in that nature. One, the villain of this could be considered the Creeping Death itself. Creeping Death, Creeping Doom, one of them. Two, if you wanted a human villain set in this world, you could have it be someone who is barring all. Um, quick, 1490 Doom is a skirmish war game, so like, uh, it's not like it's not like a tabletop where you have to like make characters and make this grand story. It can just be, oh shit, I need that guy's resources. Crack, bam, big mace to the skull. I take your shit. Anyway, if you want like a human villain in a setting like 1490 Doom, or specifically in 1490 Doom's setting, it can be. mm, Sorry, I'm choking down bile again. I have meds for this, right? It's some sort of strong and antacid. I don't think it works super well. It can be a sort of like a knight figure who's atop of a grand keep that refuses to let a single soul into their lands for fear of they'll take their resources or fear of they'll kill them or something like that. You see what I'm saying? It's like that is a feasible, though not explicitly rational, response to an overarching problem within the world, that being a gestured. Um, what's another thing I could point out? If your villain is a king of an enemy's enemy lands, right? They could be more militant than the previous ruler, or make more aggressive actions. I specify aggressive actions because that does not mean or necessarily imply the armies marching down the front gates of your heroic protagonist city. It can be they're going back on trade deals. It can be they're placing more like uh, look buildings and keeps and forts in lands that were more neutral than others. It can be they're having more aggressive merchant routes towards what were originally stable trade partners with your protagonist city, right? That is a feasible just response to, oh hey, I don't much like this kingdom for reasons left unstated, or you can state them in the story. No one really gives. No, I mean, well, people do give a shit, but like if you don't put it in, no one's gonna lambaste you for not putting it in. Side note: any content not in the main form of media delivery is not canon. Um, period, because that's kind of how that works. Take a sip of water. If an author states something in a Twitter post, but never in a book, that is not real. If a director says something in a Reddit AMA post, but it's never actually shown on any TV show or movie in the universe, that's not real. Unless it shows up in the material, it isn't canon, regardless of who says it. Because you can claim one thing, but so long as it's never shown, it isn't true. So putting that there very quickly before I forget, which made me forget my original point. What was my original point? Making a villain feasible response, king, aggressive trade routes, whatever. What was my... God damn it. A lot of this today, apparently. Is something wrong with today? Am I sick? I don't feel sick. Well, outside of the usual amount, anyway. I guess we're just gonna move on to how to make a villain matter in a story. Once again, have them be prevalent. I already just mentioned with that king of like various ways he's slighting another land. It's more fun to me in the way I just mentioned of not explicitly militarization, because now there's political subterfuge and like what is it called? Reasonable. He has an alibi. Like, oh, not the word, but that's the word I'm thinking of. Like, oh no, I never meant to slight you and your trade partners. I just sought to expand my own kingdom. I'm gonna get up and go use the bathroom again. Hopefully this I won't forget what the fuck I'm talking about. Quickly, Alt Tab, pull up those notes again. Oh wait, shit, I fucking pop. I think I just caught that. I don't know. Maybe it's been off for a little bit. Fucking improvised pop filter fell off the stupid mic, so I had to quickly pause and put that shit back on after finding it. Anyway, Alt Tab to pull up the little fucking Google Doc of the stupid little notepad I have. Make a villain writer in a story. So I remembered, haha. I think it's more interesting with the path I mentioned of like not militarization per se, but like another way of slighting the kingdom, because it leads to more unique instances than just enemy army, kill them all, right? Because that's every author's solution to how do I have conflict, big fight. What happens big fight? Well, that's it, just a big fight. It's never intimidation by fortifying supply routes and emphasizing their strength in logistics to be able to outlast them in any direct confrontation, which is a bigger worry than the battle itself, because sure, the battle itself, once you're in, right? But knowing that they might be gearing up for a battle and suddenly your whole prerogative swaps to kill them all to, oh shit, how the fuck is this gonna end for us? Is very interesting to me. Anyway, and hey, I'm a reader, so I assume people like reading what I like reading, because I like reading what I like reading, if you could believe it. Take another sip of water, also stretch again. Shit, maybe you're shrimping. Check your fucking posture. I should text that to people. It's 12, so they'll wake up seeing that and be like, what the fuck, dude? I'm just woke up. Fix your posture. You should also do that. Message your friends to tell them to fix their posture. Then they'll probably ask you, how the fuck did you know? And you can say, asterisk grins asterisk. I always know when you're fucking up, you useless sack of shit. And they'll be like, oh, you. And there will be no bad blood between you. I promise. Note, I lied. Anyway. Took a sip of water. Your villains should have, like, be more interesting than just keeps flip-flopping back and forth. I'm like, oh, villain's interesting. Oh, villains. Wait, no, I'm not. What am I on? Whatever. I'm distracting myself. I'm confused. It's nighttime. More nauseous than usual for some fucking reason. Anyway. Your villains can absolutely do more in your story than just, like, be punched. And that's how you can make them matter in your stories. Have them do more than just be punched. Your villain doesn't need to be this sort of force multiplier on the individual level if they just wield mass influence. A charlatan is as dangerous as a Tarrasque in the right circumstances. You know? You don't need to have a even still with a monster, because this still counts with a monster. Your villain doesn't need to just be I punch you enough and I win, right? Your villain can absolutely do more than just that. Beat to Warhammer. So I mentioned before somewhere where it is canon, Tyranids, like their flesh and blood and shit, is completely ew, toxic and acidic. So another sip. If your villain is a monster, you can have it be toxic and acidic to show that like just killing it isn't a great idea. Or if it's like a living mass of corruption, because I again focus on fantasy. then killing it might not be a good idea, or if it's fungal, it will spread its spores about. So killing it directly is not a good idea, and instead we must focus on an alchemical solution to our issues and coat the the beast with it and inject it into its veins to then facilitate being able to beat the fuck out of it. Because I'm not against beating the fuck out of monsters as a solution to my problems. Again, I'm fascinated with unarmed fighters in fantasy because that's such an interesting thing to do when everybody has like armor or at least weaponry training. Or maybe not explicitly training, but at least weapons, at least a knife or something. Fun fact. The Night Killer was a stiletto knife. It was not a sword. I'm gonna close up soon because I keep blanking on everything and I'm having an off day. I just wanted to put this out there because I don't have many people to talk to. So this is really my social outlet. Sad as that sounds. Um, what did I not touch on? Bap, 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 bap. Okay, so the bait and switch to close it out on, I suppose. When you're there's a video on YouTube talking about the debate and switch. You've probably seen it. If not, go watch it. Also, I'm pretty sure they're doing a Lisa the Painful video. I think that's the game they alluded to. Debate and switch. Look that up. By The Haze. The Hayze. Anyway. Huh. Looking at their old content. That's kind of fun. Eh, the debate and switch. The trope that ruins stories, if you take what they said in their title. And I fully agree. Which is why I feel so strongly with if you don't know what to do for a complex villain, don't do it. Don't do one. When villains have a genuine point, but their methods are, wrong, that's still enough to be a conflict. You don't need to suddenly have them snap and go crazy. If your villain was, say, a former slave, it's tragic. But they broke away from their bonds through violent means, which I will not despair to them against because I get it. Not as a slave, but like, oh, hey, shit, basic human empathy, I get it. And then they become a leader of a slave revolt, like a violent one at that, and your main character uh, is also a abolitionist, though they do not take up arms, right? Suddenly having your antagonist, who they can still be an antagonist even if they have good goals, right? The path to hell, pay with good intentions. Having your antagonist suddenly go crazy and want to put the former slave owners in chains and fucking torture and kill them all is shitty fucking world building. Not even shitty fucking world building, it's shitty fucking writing. You completely undercut any point your villain may have had of the necessity for violence in certain situations, and suddenly give your heroes a free pass to kick the shit out of them without being the bad guy in the situation. Navigating that tense scenario where they're technically on the same side, where they're absolutely right, but the manner in which they go about it is just too extreme to warrant and support, is a story all on its own. That is a unique scenario to put your main characters in, and the response that they have in turn can be such a wonderful bit story beat. The issue is getting it right the wrong way because it is not even in the same ballpark as the debate and switch. Nobody likes that. Hell, I don't even think authors like writing it. It's just they feel they've written themselves into a corner and can't escape it, so suddenly make them crazy so that your heroes can still look like heroes. If you catch yourself thinking, why is this, like, this villain is absolutely right, why don't they join? Kill your darlings. So, kill your darlings is a saying or slogan or whatever the fuck in writing circles of If you think something is like perfect and wonderful and can fit right into your world, and when you try to plug it in, it causes a bunch of plot holes to open up, or you have to end up trimming a considerable amount of your story to make it fit, or it eats up too much screen time, or it doesn't flow as well as you think it does, get rid of it and take it out of your story and shelve it for another one maybe. If you catch yourself starting to do a debate and switch, stab it in the heart, nip it in the bud, and just change something. Please do not do debate and switches. This one felt a lot less cohesive, but also I feel a lot less cohesive right now, so that probably reflects onto why. Uh, just mull over various things. You all know in your hearts what a good villain is. Please leave comments and responses to people who are having issues with their villains or like constructive feedback on shit. Don't just like hate bash, no matter how much I love hating. Hating is free, I love hating. I hate elves. Rah, I hate elves. That's where I would end it, but no, I want to finish it outside. Because villains are what have your stories live and die. Without a good villain, I don't think you can have a good story. Villains are one of the most important things to get down alongside your protagonist. So if someone asks you, hey, do you think this is a good idea, genuinely hear them out. Don't give them stupid fucking platitudes, or don't, like, say, oh, it's great. That is the worst advice you can give to a creator, aspiring or otherwise, shit like that, right? Um, this one felt like shit, but I'm still putting it up there. Have fun watching this. Anyway, I guess, yeah, whatever.